If I forget you, O Jerusalem, may my right hand not function properly. They say, forget it's coming, but it really means not function properly, or not have its strength. May my tongue remain, every translation is different, stick to the roof of my mouth, if I do not keep you in mind, if I do not count Jerusalem the greatest of my joys. Anyway, I don't know the rest of this, but there are other ones about coming to Zion with joy on their faces and so on and so forth. Just read the Psalms. They're just chock-a-block full. So the Jews understood, and I'm sure Christians who read the Psalms understand. And the prophets, Zion means returning to Jerusalem. But unfortunately, it was a kind of esoteric or abstruse expression that I think the rest of the world misunderstood and still does. So when Arabs or Persians or the Carlyle group of people like that who were hostile to anything, quote, Zionistic, the UN, for instance, even though they have quotes from Isaiah over their big podium, hear anything about Zionism, they want to, condemn it or something. They even had a thing some years back in the UN, Zionism is racism and stuff like that. So I said every other country can have a national movement, but the Jews can't. And they're such a small people who've been through so many things. I don't know what the big problem is, frankly. It's such a minuscule group of people. I mean, even Guatemalans can have a national movement. Nobody objects. It's just kind of stupid when you think about it. It's kind of stupendous, the situation that these people face and which we're still facing. I do think that Israel is atom bomb project #1. And I honestly think that they will, if they get their nukes, they will wipe it out. And, not many people will weep either, except the Jews. So the only recourse the Jews have, I mean, the UN isn't going to say them. The Bush administration talks, but they're never going to do anything because, now with the new election, they'll all tie each other up in the knots and no one will be able to do anything. They'll never get a resolution from Congress to do anything on anything. They'll just disagree. So ultimately, the Israelis are going to have to do it, take it into their own hands if it comes to that. And if it comes to that, they'll get condemned by everybody for doing it. But they are atom bomb project #1. I mean, we're in the target too, but we're not seriously threatened with extinction. We're threatened with some very serious tragedies. I mean, we can lose a few cities to nuclear and biological terrorism. And I would assume Washington, New York, and LA are the first 3 on the list. But the country isn't threatened. The country will revive from that, and all hell will break loose. That's all I can tell you. Such a thing occurs. This country will, I don't think, stand for that. This whole country will get mobilized in such a way that will be frightening. So I hope to God that never happens here, because all of you guys will be drafted. That's all I can tell you. Such a thing occurs. And that's why I think what we're watching in the world is something that people have to think really seriously about how to deal with it, because it's not something that is just going to go away.
What are your theories on why that global anxiety exists against the Jews developed in this country?
I think we covered it in this class. I think it's a theological issue. I think it's been theological from the beginning.
I was wondering if there was anything besides that.
To my mind, it causes all the other things. I'm sure there are lots of other things that you can heap upon it, but how you can get all worked up about a people who's already been decimated by half in the last 50, 100 years, and still, want to decimate them further. I just don't understand. I just don't understand. So that's why I teach these courses, because honestly, I don't understand. And everyone else seems to understand. Oh, it's so troublesome and so on. We don't question. I'm not against the Arabs by any means. I love Arabs. I teach Islam. I live among Arabs. I like their spirit and so on, etc. I mean, I think how many Arab countries are there from Morocco to Iraq? Something like 20 or so? What? They deserve 20 countries. 20 countries, and they can't tolerate one little Israel? This, to my mind, is the most amazing of inhospitality. And yet they think they're totally justified because everything that happens, the Israelis are responsible for, even though it's, you know, action causes a reaction and so on. Obviously, if someone's going to set off a suicide bomb, someone is going to retaliate, and it goes on and on and on and on. You know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, but to feel that you're right, that in fact you're justified in bombing and doing all these things when you've got so much land. I mean, you would think if the Quran, which is clearly based on Judaism, much more than Christianity. I mean, Muhammad is imbued with Judaism. It's just cosmopolitan Judaism in the Quran and Islam. You would think that people would recognize their debt, and instead of being poisoned with hatred, would actually say, come, we'll shelter you, come, we'll give you hospitality, you've suffered enough. But no, just murderous instinct for killing. So I don't know the answer to what you say. I don't know, it's theological. To me, it's theological. No human would feel these things if it wasn't based on some theology. I mean, we don't feel murderous hatred towards Eskimos. We don't feel murderous hatred towards Bushmen. I mean, some people do, or Aborigines in Australia or whatever. I mean, okay, people aren't happy about them, but no one wants to, you know, put them in gas chambers that I'm aware of in a systematic way. So it's, to me, theological. That's the only thing that can explain it to me. Okay, let's look at Pinsker. This is another great thinker and writer of this period. Now, Pinsker is 1821 to 1891. And, you know, all these, I mean, it's somewhat, you say, well, you're just doing the same thing over and over again. No, there's slight differences. You see it developing. I mean, we have the Reform Orthodox Conservative Judaism well covered in the Rudovsky book. This is worth covering because this is really what's happening in our day. I mean, Reform Conservative Orthodox Judaism may be there, but it's not what's happening. It's not the living spirit of the people at the moment, if you want to call it that. This is 1882. This is extremely interesting, and this is, again, 10 or 15 years before Herzl. What I want to show you is these are what Lacour